What's up, everybody? This is A.L. Johnson with Elevated Men here with the beautiful cast, beautiful panel. We're getting ready to have a great conversation about love and marriage. And so if you tuned in last week, this is part two of our four-part series, Man and Woman or Man versus Woman, where we break down a lot of the things that divide us in our community between the men and women. And so it's going to be a great conversation. Definitely stick around, stay tuned, like, comment, and share because this is interactive. So we want you to be a part of it as well. But if you can, take a look in the comments section. You should see a link there to sign up for our email list. So we want you to be a part of our newsletter so that you can stay updated on everything that we've got going on and coming up. We're going to take you for a nice ride, but we'll be back in just a second. All right, let's get it. So before we get into the conversation, got to introduce my esteemed panel here. And so to my right, I've got Andrew Boykin. How you doing this evening?
Couldn't find the unmute button. I'm doing wonderful.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Keep going. We're going that way. We're going that way. And Miss Devin Elise, how you doing?
I am good. Hey, y'all.
Good. Hey, tell everybody a little bit about your nonprofit, just really quick.
So I have a nonprofit called Lift It KC to focus on mental health in the community. Our focus right now is Men Heal. So we're trying to address and encourage our men in the community to lead by example by starting to focus on their holistic approach of mental health, physical, spiritual, whole nine. So that's us.
Love it. And below her, we've got L. Beasley, Mr. LaRon Barnes, LaRon the Motivator. How you doing, bro?
I tell you, I'm better than good and better than most, and even feeling me better to be here. Did you hear what I'm saying?
love it. To his left, we got Miss Latoya Rose off 79rose.com. How you doing?
Hey, good evening, everybody.
All right. And last but not least, Lojo Speaks. How you doing, my brother?
What it is, what it do. Ready for another exciting show. Let's get it.
Man, so look, we got to talk about this whole love and marriage situation, right? Because when you look on social media, the majority of the conversation is around dating, relationships, love, because it's really important to us as adults. That's like the largest part of your life. 9 times out of 10, outside of your children, is your romantic relationship. And so that's why we want to have this conversation. But behind the scenes, we were talking about the title, and we said, does it really make sense for it to be love and marriage, or should it be love or marriage? Because a lot of times those two things don't intertwine. And I think that comment came from this guy over here. So Andrew, can you expound on what you meant by love or marriage?
Okay, so real quickly, it's just my opinion. I was not back in the day, but back in the day, people used to jump the broom because they were not allowed to get married. And then when they were eventually allowed to get married, marriage was sacred to that man and that woman. And then later on in the mid 1900s, let's call it the 60s or 70s, when I started watching TV, men called women their lady, different than their wife. And women called men their main man, different than their husband. Later on, that title went on to go on steady, and then it turned into it just morphed into different words, like then we wind down to relationship. But what I'm saying is the union itself and the sacredness of the union, the importance of the union, has watered down so much that many of the people that I talk to really have hope that a relationship is just as valuable as a marriage. And I don't see that. I don't believe that. And
so tell me this. So what is the difference between a relationship and marriage? Because it's 2022 now. You said we ain't back in the day. And so when people live together, they combine bills, they raise children, etc. You have people, maybe it's a religious thing, maybe it's like you said, old school thinking or whatever. But why? What's the difference? What's the difference?
Now, is that question to me or anybody?
Yes,
Please.
that's to you. That's to
Okay,
you.
so the difference is, and I believe that one of our comments from last time is that when you're married, there are a whole set of rights that comes along with legalities that come along with those protections. And in conversation, that word protections, what I found out is a lot of women, they actually hold more value in that ring, in that marriage, more security, shall I say, versus the non-commitment, or just the commitment, shall I say, because that's a scary thing, because he can jet on that commitment at any time, but that legality, it's a little bit more secure for her.
Got a comment here from Miss Hazeline Clay. Thanks for tuning in. It says you can't put the horse before the cart, and that's what we do now. And so I completely understand that. But here's my question. So a lot of men, you see a lot of conversation online about men being afraid of marriage and feeling like the agreement as it stands is kind of lopsided, meaning that once you make that commitment with the ring and a traditional marriage through the court system, if things go wrong for some reason, the woman is entitled to half. And I know in every situation, it may not be that way. The woman may be the breadwinner, but for the most part, that's how it's looked at. And so it looks like an uneven, unequal proposition. What do you think about that? Anyone?
So how about this? What do some of these ladies think about that?
Yeah, Nashina Nicole, thanks for tuning in. She said he can jet on a marriage as well. And so is it really protection? Or is it just a feel-good piece of paper? One of the ladies, can you jump in on that?
As a married woman, I think there's a different commitment when you go through the process of getting married. It's not just, whether it's the court or the church, wherever you get married at. I think it's a different level of commitment when you go through the process of getting married. But I also know people, like, nowadays you have common law, relationships, and people have been together just as long as people who have been married. So I think it really comes down to what's important to the two people in a relationship. Some people don't need the title. Some people want it. So
definitely can't argue that. It's always to each his own. But in general, do you feel like it creates any type of insecurity as far as a woman? If a man doesn't walk down the aisle, if he doesn't sign the piece of paper, is it not as real? Devin, what's your thoughts on that?
I should have answered the other question. No, I from a woman's perspective, I can only speak for me. I think there is a sense of security in having the full commitment of marriage versus just being in a relationship or in a committed relationship for a tenure of time. And I just feel like, and I think I said it in the group chat that we had, but I think that marriage comes with a business approach. There's a business agreement from the proposal to the wedding to being there, because it allows us to feel a part of that man's life now. So if anything was to happen to him, we have a say in that. And I've seen so many women invest time, money, and everything into relationships. And if something happens to that person, then they're just kind of out on a limb with no backing behind them as far as what they've invested into their relationship. So again, it all depends on how a person looks at it and what they're actually wanting out of that relationship to, decide if what's best for them.
All right. So we have a message from Keelan Powell. He says marriage is security for women. Black culture needs rites of passage for men and women. And there's something that we definitely need to dig into when we talk about Black culture and dating versus other cultures, because I believe there's a little bit of a difference in the mindset and how we look at it. But when I think about marriage as a business, right? So we talk about infidelity. One of the number one causes for divorce outside of finances is infidelity. And so when I think of marriage as a business, you can go to the Bible, you can go to old England or whatever, and there were arranged marriages and all these things. And it was about business, land, property, ownership, etc. And so the women that went into those marriages, I feel, had a completely different mindset. They didn't marry for love. They marry for business. And here in the Western culture in America, we marry and date for love. And so infidelity becomes really high on the list of non-negotiables. Just leaving that statement out there, what are your thoughts? What comes to mind when you think about the difference between then and now in marriage as a business?
Can I jump in there?
Please.
So my thought goes back to those olden days. And forgive me for talking about olden days, but the last name, the man's last name at one point in time was him, was his ownership. And for today's generation, a man and a wife, or a man and a woman have a kid, that man and that woman, they want to give that kid the man's last name to keep the name going on. Well, this man is basically saying, you know, I'll give my kid my last name. When my parents have my last name, I have my last name. That's important. But you're not important enough to have my last name. That says something to me. That says something to me.
Interesting. Keelan, hey, thanks, bro. You're right. When dealing with married couples, it is more likely that they will purchase insurance versus a single male or female. If you need life insurance, visit aljohnsongroup.com. Sure, I'll go ahead and throw that plug out there real quick. Going through the comments here, we got Nashina Nicole. Unfortunately, some women get so focused on the ring, they neglect the relationship. I believe wholeheartedly in marriage, but in this day and age, even marriages aren't safe because people are marrying for the wrong reason. Let's stand there for a minute. So, focused on the ring and they neglect the relationship. We had a conversation offline, me and this guy over here, and we were talking about, and that's actually where the culture differences came in. It was stated that women from different cultures are focused on the marriage and keeping the marriage going, whereas in our culture, especially in this age of social media, you know, doing everything for likes and comments and shares, we're more interested in the proposal being grandiose. We're more interested in having a huge wedding, a huge party, all these different things. But when it comes to the actual marriage and sustaining it, you know, maybe not. What are your thoughts on that? Anybody?
I don't think that's cultural. I mean, cultural to Black people specifically. I think that's cultural to maybe modern day society right now. But I mean, I know, you know, Black couples have been married for years, you know, and have put in the work, you know, to maintain it from all different generations. So I don't think it's a Black thing. I think it's culturally where we at, because I think like no one wants to wait. Nobody wants to do the work. You know, relationships, like anything, their work, you know, you got to put in work before you get married. There's counseling that you go to, or you should go to make sure that you're prepared during the marriage. It's going to be some issues, you go like for maintenance, you know. But that's just my perspective. I think it's just culturally, because it's all like culturally being like pop culture, not necessarily Black culture.
I think I lean that way. We haven't heard from you, Lojo. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree. I would probably use, maybe not culturally, but maybe generationally. Maybe that's the thought process. You know, I know I posed the question in the group chat of how many of us grew up in a two-parent home, because I think our observations of marriage and our observations of love are what kind of guide us as we continue to move through life. As kids, as teenagers, as young adults. You know, some have that blueprint of what they saw with, you know, their parents, good or bad, right? So I'll just use myself as an example. You know, coming up as a teenager, you know, I didn't see my parents in love. So, you know, I was out really trying to prove to be the guy that my dad wasn't, as a husband and a father, without really having the tools to be able to do that. And so, you know, my first relationship it wasn't even built on a solid foundation, so to say. And then I fast forward into, you know, my relationship with my wife, and I was still young, so I did have the experience of how to navigate a relationship different. However, I was still young, still trying to grow into the man that I, you know, at that point in life wanted to become. And so when you bring somebody into your own, you know, personal growth, You have to have that open communication to be able to discuss when mentally, emotionally, psychologically you're changing. And I think that a lot of it is just really built on the foundation that we see, because we do everything through experience and observation, learn behavior that we see from other people. And that's kind of what shapes how we dictate, our feelings about love and marriage. I mean, these kids got love and hip hop. That's what they growing up on. That is their definition of a relationship and all the chaos that ensues. We grew up on stuff like the Cosby Show where we saw, Heathcliff, and we saw we saw them having each other's backs with all the kids in the house, and things like that. And so it's just a lot of it, in my opinion, is observation and experience of what we have seen.
Definitely. That's a good point. There were actually a couple of comments that echo that. I'll get to those in just a second. For those of you that are tuning in, do me a favor. If you're hearing us okay, everything's going well, give us a like, a heart, or something. I just want to make sure we're doing good on our end. And so if you hear us okay, go ahead and give us a like. But while you're at it, go ahead and hit the share button so more people know we're having a great conversation here. We got a comment from Treese Tucker. She's always here. Appreciate you. She said, yes, I think marriages are dying due to the amount of people who aren't religious and don't believe in marriage, plus the amount of people who are open to different types of relationships that exist. Plus, a lot of our generation and the younger generations have seen what our parents and grandparents have tolerated in their marriage and are not willing to settle for that. Let's stick on the tolerated part. So how many, and this is for the ladies, this is specifically for the ladies, but when it comes to settling, right? And when you look at your grandparents, you look at your aunts and maybe things that they went through, infidelity, maybe getting left in a financial strain after a relationship or something like that. How does that affect your decision making now?
I was gonna hit on this. I was gonna say that with the gender roles changing in general, like marriage was, back in the day, protection. You got married, your husband took care of you. He was a breadwinner, like all those things like that from a protection perspective. Nowadays, like with, as more equality for women's rights come into play, like women don't need that type of protection from a marriage perspective. So I think that has affected current day marriage rates. And women don't have to stay in relationships. They don't have to stay, for financial reasons or stay in abusive relationships because they are more fiscally independent nowadays. But from growing up, what I've seen, I have to echo other comments. Like I really didn't really see a lot of strong, relationships around me. Like, even back from my grandparents, like tolerated, like, all the stories of what, men were doing in the streets. And it was just kind of like women, it's kind of like those times was like, okay, that's just kind of how men are. And you tolerate it. Where nowadays, I think people, either man or woman, it's like you cheat or whatever, then I'm out of here.
What is fiscally responsible? I'm in the third grade. Can you help me out with that terminology?
Women are more fiscally responsible and independent, so they don't need to rely on a man, to take care of their bills and pay bills. And so I think, again, that leads to, people don't feel like they need to get married. That protection that type.
Yeah, it leads to more options. Yeah, it leads to more options for women. So, just say if there was a woman that was staying there specifically for provision and she didn't have access to her own, resources, that's a completely different thing now. And so they're setting the bar higher. So I get that. You have something to say, Lauren?
I wanted to ask a question. It kind of went back to something that Boykin had said in the beginning when he talked about back in the day. We're even talking about, England, all that type of stuff. And we talked about why people married and the business decisions behind why, and it being built around legacy, right? Maybe if a certain family name had, or two families were powerful and came together to create, more power and things like that to keep that power and control, and just how that family name and that legacy, was important enough to continue. When you think about abbreviated last names now for women, and it's asked the question, is it about protecting herself or is it about protecting her family's legacy? It's just a question.
I like both of those, Lauren, because that name, we just don't understand. Many of us have nicknames because we don't even understand the power in our name. We don't know the history of our name. We don't have a name. We have not made a name for ourselves. So we continue on with this coming together. Nashina Nicole made a comment earlier when we were talking about marriages, how men jet too. And the ladies here, Latoya and Devin, I believe, participated in the conversation offline when they were talking about proposals being a business, and they understood that this was a business acquisition. Men don't come to the table with a business act. We don't propose anything, and today's woman has no counter proposal. So therefore, once the word relationship or marriage is put on the table, if that's it, yeah, I can leave that at any point in time because there's no growth, there's no purpose, there is no legacy, like Lojo just talked about.
Yeah, I mean, and that's because in Western culture, we marry for love. The business part isn't there. So when we talk about a proposal, it's a business proposal. If I married you for love, I saw you, I was attracted to you, we're vibing, everything feels great. And then we just move down the line and end up married. That had nothing to do with a business proposal. So that was never a thought. It's never a thought for most men. It makes absolute sense. LaRon, we haven't heard from you. And so part of the question from Therese had to do with marriage and church. And so how big of an influence do you feel that the church has on marriage? And from your experience, do you see that more young people that in church are married versus outside of the church? And if so, why?
I believe that, yeah, no, absolutely. I believe that the church has a big influence on marriage. I remember, to be honest with you, when I first got married, and I say the church, but I guess I should say my spiritual beliefs. I want to say it like that for a reason, because me in particularly, spiritually, I felt that that's what we were supposed to do. And it was even said inside of the church, the building, because the way that it looks, and I'm just being honest, like when I got married, it was my previous pastor, was like, hey, you know what? Y'all kind of living together. You know what I mean? Y'all doing this thing right here. Listen, I'm not trying to judge you, but we got to do some things to get some things right if y'all going to be doing this, because it got to be being in titles and positions. And like I said, I don't want to get into all that. But I believe that it's just a spiritual thing. You have to, and I'm coming from a biblical perspective saying, don't be unevenly yoked. You know what I mean? With I'll say unbelievers. That's what the Bible says about it. So if you are a person who's spiritual, if you're a person who are strong on your beliefs, I believe that's the first place you're gonna put your attention on and kind of use the reference from marriage from. And I believe that, and here's the thing about it. I noticed that a lot of individuals that I've noticed that I've talked to when it comes to marriage, they're looking at the wrong thing. They're looking at that what is portrayed externally. They're not looking at the battles. They're not looking at the disagreements. They're not looking at some of the other things that happen in marriage. They only see the glitz and the glam. Some of them only stay where the rice is being thrown. You know what I mean? They're staying in the moment. You can't stay there. And so some individuals, I truly believe that they only look at it from how it looks to the world. Not understanding it's a true commitment. This means that I'm giving me you, and you are getting me. That means we are no longer separate individuals, but we're one. That means that what is yours is mine. How can you be one but separate? The only person I know can do that is really God. You know what I mean? And so when we do get into the marriage, I just truly believe that the perception from the external, people are trying to make their marriage compare to other people's instead of comparing. And I'm only speaking for myself from this place, because I truly believe that there's only one book that got it all together, regardless of what everybody else believes. But I believe they're looking at other people of marriage as a foundation, except the basic instructions before leaving Earth.
Anybody want to elaborate on that?
Was he talking
You
about my
said a
book?
lot. You said a lot there. What was that?
Was he talking about my book when he said only one book? No.
That's hilarious.
We got another comment from Nashina. Love the interaction. Appreciate it, people. Definitely like, comment, and share. We want to get more people added to this conversation because perspective is what really brings us all together. And so it says those are generational curses and they can be broken. We have to know just because we've seen it, we don't have to do it. That is where unlearning behavior comes in. They did what they knew to do. Now we know better. Wholeheartedly agree with that. For anyone, what does that look like, though? What does that look like? So we talked about Andrew.
What it feels like.
So I wanted to ask, what does that look like in the form of Treese Tucker's question? If you put that up here where it says, but people have to realize that women don't need men and men don't need women. We both supposed to be independent, but life can be sweeter with a partner of love. So this question is to the ladies. Partner of love what? Love each other, love legacy, love purpose, love God, love reason, love what? Because the first thing that popped into my mind was love whatever I'm getting from her, whatever she's getting from me, and then the love starts to dissipate once that giving starts to lessen.
So is that what we would call the honeymoon phase? So we get together, everything is hot and heavy. We're giving all that we can.
That might be what we think love is. And I don't think that's what love is when we marry for love.
What is it then?
I'm asking the ladies. Hey, my book was Top 10 Reasons Why I Don't Know What Love Is. Okay.
All right. So Devin, let's go to you a little bit. What does that love look like?
Whew. So I'm gonna be clear that I'm coming from Devin's heart and nobody else's. So don't take this as law or that one book, that one Bible. This is Devin's heart. So I feel like when I'm going into a relationship and love, oh gosh, I think it requires more than love, and that's for me, like, because I feel like relationships go in cycles where there is a honeymoon phase and then life happens and then you could possibly not like the person and then you get back to that place where it's a honeymoon phase again and sparks are firing off or whatever. And I believe that, and I've stated it in our group chat, I don't think love is enough to make a relationship work. I think both people have to be intentional about loving themselves because you can't put out what's not in you. So even with not understanding love, like that's the first thing, like identifying who you are and what you need out of life. And that comes from the whole, the holistic approach, I would say, as far as the financial means, the emotional support, the mental support. I'm huge on love languages. So I think knowing yourself and being able to give that and understanding that whoever you are in a relationship with and where they're coming from, what's their love language, and understanding that, because it's not going to always look the same and situations is going to alter that. I think you just really got to be open for communicating and knowing that there's going to be a cycle with love, with the marriage, with relationships. And I'm all for making the relationship work as long as it's healthy for both people, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and so forth. So
let me ask a question. We just want to go round robin style, just really quick. What is the number one reason for marriage? Just one or two words, just real quick. I'll start with you, Andrew. What is the reason for marriage?
Sex is not going to be the first word that pops in my head. So
what's that? What was it?
Too late.
Man, all right. Devin, what number one reason?
Devin
And
heard
please
it.
leave it in the comments too. For those of you that are watching, leave your number one reason for marriage in the comments. I'm trying to see something. Partnership. I think Latoya dropped off there. LaRon, number one reason for marriage.
I would have to say I would have to go with partnership and companionship, because in that is love and a lot of different other things. But we want partnership. We want companionship. It was not meant for men to be alone. That's the only reason why I say that.
Now I know what you said, Andrew. Thank you, Miss Hazeline Clay. SEX. Got you. Lojo, number one reason for marriage.
Partnership.
And Latoya, I don't know if you've been able to hear what we're talking about, but we're just going round robin. And what is the number one reason for marriage?
Companionship.
So we got let's see, unity. We have partnership. We talked about love, family, and that's the one that I didn't hear. So we've had this entire conversation for about 30 minutes, and we talked about love, we talked about partnership, we talked about the honeymoon phase, we've talked about business, but what we haven't talked about is the fact that we procreate. And now we have a little boy or a little girl who's watching this couple who was in love, and we're supposed to be leading and guiding them. And so when we talk about the old way of doing things, marriage was a business, and infidelity or not, we want to make sure that we stay together for the family unit. Now we have more of an individualistic view. And so it's about my personal feelings. Do I feel in love anymore? Or maybe I don't. If I don't, then I don't need to settle. I need to go and do something else. But what about the family unit? How important is that today? Do we need both parents in the home? Do they need to be married? Or does, two individual people need to be ultimately happy and in love? And, the children just kind of see this as this is how the world works. How should it be?
Please,
anybody.
That's definitely another show. Because
no, that's this show.
I'm just saying, because a lot of people will say, dude, I tried to stay for the sake of my kids, but I was killing myself.
Yeah.
And I was going to say that's why family that can't be the reason that you want to marry. It can be because of course your children are your legacy, right? When you leave the earth, your children are supposed to be your legacy, right? But in order to get to that point, look at it like this. How many kids do we have born out of wedlock?
Yeah.
See, the thing is if you look at what a family is, the way that I look at a family is a resource. A family is a resource in a bigger plan, a purpose. Purpose is the reason for marriage, whatever that purpose is. Meaning, if I marry and now I have a helpmate, and this plan says that I'm going to acquire land and work it. So that means I need workers, children, to carry on when I can't do it anymore. Now my children have land. They marry. They have a family that land expands, and now they have products. They pass that on to their children. Their children marry. They have land, products, and more children. So now they have a business. Generationally, that purpose has been growing and growing and growing. However, there's no purpose. There's no need for family. There's no need for children. There's no need for love. There's no need for reason, because we don't have purpose. We don't have a plan.
But that is under the assumption that a couple wants children.
Okay.
Yeah. And I say, because that was my fight in my first marriage of 10 years, was that we had these little kids, and I wanted my kids to grow up in a 2-parent home because I didn't. And it was such a relief. Like once I finally divorced, and mental health is my passion. So I was very strategic about making sure that I got my kids involved in counseling immediately, because I didn't know what kind of effect divorce was going to have on them. And one of the biggest things that put my mind at rest was when we were all in family counseling, me and my kids, of course. They all told me that they loved me, they loved their dad, but they were happy that we weren't together. And I never knew the impact of what they seen going on in our household really did to them until that moment. So we talk a lot about generational curses, and we talk a lot about breaking the cycle. We are developing, if we're staying for the sake of family, we're developing these cycles, and we're keeping these cycles going by showing our kids, our daughters, that stay in an abusive relationship. We're showing our sons it's okay to hit a woman because she's not going to go anywhere. Sometimes for the sake of family, you have to separate, because I mean, even though we don't have it all the way right, we're getting to a place, my ex-husband and I, where co-parenting is more healthy than our marriage was. And for my kids to see that, I'm grateful. So I don't ever encourage anyone to stay for the sake of family, because it can be more detrimental than leaving and starting a new healing process. That's my
Lojo, you've been clapping and fist pumping the whole time, man. What are your thoughts?
She just dropping knowledge, man. I mean, when we talk about, right, when I was talking about how we observe love from the people in our homes, that can be positive or negative, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna speak for my sister, but I know when my family or my parents finally divorced, man, I was about to hit them with the rock, like, finally, because I was just like, it was just so toxic, and we were just sitting there, and it was just like, I was like, what took so long? What I'm saying? Like, y'all had more kids, y'all brought more kids into a toxic environment to just view more so it's another kid just seeing the toxic side of what they think a relationship is supposed to be like. And so, like Devin said, you can't stay in it for the kids. Like, the kids can't be the reason that you stay. Then that's why marriage and the partnership, the companionship between the two of you, don't have nothing to do with the kids. The kids are just an extension of, love. The kids are an extension of love in the moment. Let's be honest. Kids are an extension of love in the moment. That's how children are created. And so, but they can't be the reason that you stay together. I mean, if you're showing your child, your children, this is what love is, and little man saying, mom gets smacked up, yeah, it's gonna hurt his feelings that his mom is getting smacked up. But he's also learning that, okay, when I get with my lady, if she get out of line for whatever reason I deem she's out of line, she gonna get smacked up.
Okay, so
girls, right? They see and they like, oh, okay, so I gotta be buttoned up, or they'll go the total opposite way, which is, I ain't even going down that road at all. I'm not gonna get in a relationship because I don't want to have to deal with that. And so I'm gonna step away from it, and I'm just gonna be single lady with the girls. So
interesting.
Then we just start to settle for the term relationship.
Yep.
So let's see, we got Nico Baker here. Thanks for tuning in. It says, if you're doing something for someone else, then check and make sure it is best for that someone else. Absolutely. All of you that are watching, we appreciate you. Go ahead and like, keep the comments coming, and definitely share this, because we want to add more people to the conversation to get some different perspectives.
And I want to be clear about something.
Sure.
Breaking the cycle is painful. It is absolutely painful to break the cycle, because you are actually doing the opposite of everything you've seen, everything you've learned to be correct. And so it is so painful to be like, well, I'm over here doing this. Why did it happen like this over here? And that's a whole level of pain that when you were trying to break the cycle to do things the right way, that sometimes people don't express you know, because sometimes you don't even know how to express it, but it is painful, you know. So, and that's why it's hard for people to change and to break the cycle, because it's painful, it's hard, and you don't want to experience that, because sometimes it can be too much. And so it's easy for us to relegate back to what we saw and what we think we know, because, you know, and it comes down to which part of the pain am I willing to deal with?
Can I jump in there? Because Lauren made a very, very poignant statement. It's very painful. Imagine if we actually began to change our narrative, and I borrowed that from Lauren, and knowing that it is painful, what if we actually assigned the word courageous to it? That is very courageous to face that loneliness, to face that moment of challenge within yourself, to do something different, to set a new tomorrow, to become that new tomorrow. What if all these leaders that we're looking for, all these courageous people to save us that we're looking for, is actually right within us?
I like that. I like that, especially from the perspective of mental health, where every word that is used is with a negative connotation to it. So it's like if you approach it with positivity or a reinforcement word that's more positive, then people are more subjected. People run from being called toxic. It labels you. It makes you feel like you're doing something wrong. But if you say you've been hurt, I understand, then you get a better response. So I really like how you flip that and use courageous instead of changing the narrative and keeping the negative tone behind it. So yeah.
Well, those are Lauren's words. This is off the screen. So he's the one that said change the narrative.
So we got a comment here. It says, as a people, we need therapy in and out of marriage. I know there's a such thing as pre-marriage counseling, etc. What are some red flags, right? You know, we've all been in relationships. What are some serious red flags before you make the decision to marry that says, hey, maybe this isn't the person? Key red flags. And let me give a little context. I'm talking about the person that you met at the party. You were attracted to each other physically. You vibe well together. You got some things going on. But when it comes to marriage, it's a completely different ball game than just having a good time. And so what are some red flags? Lauren, let me start with you, Lauren.
Well,
what's the red flag, man? Come on, ref.
I do have to
make you blow the whistle.
Check this out. I do have to say this. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I'll just use this word because it's the only one that comes to my mind. That's a personal choice. That really is. Because, for example, with me, I didn't want a woman who was in a club. I'm not a clubber. I don't want a woman who's a party going woman. I just don't. And so that was a no. I didn't want a woman who had a drinking issue, right? Like, it's a personal thing, and it doesn't mean that I'm judging you for being that individual. It's just not the individual that I want. And so we have to set up guard railings on what we won't go out of. Listen. I don't want a person. They could change, but I'm not going to be here to see it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what a lot of people go in with intentions of them being able to change because they have this, that, and the other quality. But if you go into that, when they don't change, don't complain. And a lot of people, you feel what I'm saying, yo? Like,
definitely. I think that's one of the biggest problems now, too, is, you know, people getting into relationships for the vision that they see of that person. Like, oh, you got potential. I can see you being this, or I can see you being that. And I actually just made a post on this about a week ago. But the fact of the matter is, whether it's financially, physically, or otherwise, very few people ever reach their full potential for whatever reason. It's just the facts. That's why 90% of people are in the lower class, and there's only 10% that really reach that upper echelon. And so when you're dealing with someone out of an expectation of their future self, you really don't love the person for who they are right now, and that's who you're with. You're with that person today. And so I think that does tear up a lot of relationships, a lot of potentially good relationships. Another red flag, so people are throwing red flags here. We got competition. I'm really curious, Ms. Clay, so if you could give us a little context around that. But my assumption is you don't want to be with someone who makes you feel like you're in competition with other women. If I'm right, just let me know. We got here, controlling is a red flag. Controlling.
That's such a subjective question, because I think it's different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because for somebody, controlling may be a red flag, but for somebody else, they want to be controlled. You know, so I think it's kind of subjective in a way. You know, I like what LaRon said, where he said that, you know, it's what I want out of the relationship, or what I am looking for. And if you don't fit the bill in the moment, maybe you fit the bill later. And I don't get to see it because I chose not to stick around. You know, I think that we need to dating longer, right? If you would just simply date longer, you know, if you want to see the potential, right? If you want to see the potential, but it's not there, you have to date longer, and then you have to make the determination on when it's time to cut bait, right? Which is why, you know, you have those relationships that, you know, such and such been together for 10 years and they ain't married. And it's kind of like, well, somebody or maybe even both of them are waiting on something and they're hoping it's going to happen because they really want to be with this person, but it's not happening. So they use the word patience. I'm just being patient and waiting. And so, you know, I think that, you know, again, I think it's subjective to each individual and what they want, what they come into the relationship wanting, and how long they're willing to wait if they think they see it. You know, because some people just get married so quick, right? They never got out of the honeymoon phase, but they already married. And then all of a sudden, certain things start to rear their heads, and they like, whoa, like what happened? Well, maybe if you would have waited just a smidge longer, they would have revealed themselves eventually. And so, you know, but because you were in love and it felt good in the moment, you hadn't really been through anything yet. You just chose to jump in. And I mean, I if you ain't been through nothing, don't get married. Like if your relationship has not gone through any sort of pain points, that's probably a sign, especially depending on timing. At a certain point, if it hasn't gone through anything, y'all probably not really meant to be together. You know.
Let me jump in real quick. There's a couple of comments. I see you, LeBron. Just really quick, Hazelyn Clay, she had commented about competition.
Comments.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Just slow down. So it says not other women. So when she was talking about competition, she was talking about competition between the man and the woman. And so we did touch on the conversation a little bit last week, just about finances, you know, head of household, breadwinner, et cetera, et cetera. And I was having a conversation with one of our viewers, and he said that, you know, he wasn't clear on the women's stance when it comes to goals financially. You know, so say you're a business owner, your man is a business owner, you have to come together. You can't push both businesses at the same time for some reason. Does the man take the lead or does the woman? So there's so many questions that come in involved with that. But I did just want to give some clarity to what Ms. Clay said. Oh, there are so many comments here. Give me a second.
So where you find the comment?
This is one here.
Speak. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, because I definitely want to hear from ladies on this. So she said, I stopped having intercourse 11 years ago. So we're talking about the dating phase. We're talking about the dating phase, right? And, you know, why marriages don't end up working out. She said, because after the sex, there was nothing there. So I had to start focusing on myself. And I think that's what a lot of people need to start doing. Take the sex out, do it the old fashioned way, then see where it goes from there. And so the old fashioned way, Andrew, you know, let us know. But you know, the old fashioned way was to not have sex before marriage. And I was raised in church, and that's what was preached. No sex before marriage. Do you think the fact that we're so open and free sexually in today's society, is that a part of the problem?
I'm
Or do you think
testing
that
water.
that doesn't work? That's a part. Elaborate.
I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, in all seriousness, I just kind of wanted to touch on what Lauren was saying when he was saying time, and I am kind of opposite in what he was saying, just because I feel like, well, kind of in a opposite, because again, like he was saying, if your relationship hasn't withstood any controversy, any adversities, then you don't know exactly how a person will respond. But I also feel like we're designed to grow. We're designed to evolve. Prayerfully, no one just remains stagnant in life, let alone in a relationship. So if you are in a relationship and things start to change and people start to evolve, there is a possibility in growing apart from each other. And even you can love a person and see that your direction, and even if you're on a spiritual level where God is taking you, the person's not following, they don't want to go, whatever. So I don't know wholeheartedly if dating longer really answers the question, because 5 years in, 10 years in, a person can grow and change to be someone that is no longer appealing. And I don't mean on a sexual level. I mean on a, my goals have changed. My purpose has been realigned and I need to go this way, and you don't understand the shift, or you're not willing to support the shift. And that's on either man or woman's end. So I don't know if time really answers. I mean, again, with marriage, it's business for the most part, outside of the emotional aspect. And sometimes businesses have to adapt and shift for to continue on an upward spiral. And if you don't have a person, just kind of going back into the comment where there's competition, if you have a person that's always tug of warring with you and you want to go here and they purposely just want to compete with you and combat you, then I don't see a marriage being successful long anyway. So that's
You did that. You did that. Oh, so where can people get the t-shirt? Got a comment here. Love your t-shirt. Me and Hill, cool. Where can they get that shirt?
if you go to our Facebook, it's Lifted KC, but we will have a vendor booth Saturday at the Juneteenth on Vine. It's from noon to 10. So a whole lot of Black-owned business owners are going to be out there set up celebrating us. So I encourage everyone to be there, support, walk around. It's family focused. They're going to have like a concert later on that night, but Lifted KC will have a vendor booth, and we hope you guys can come out. If not, again, go to our Facebook, Lifted KC.
Awesome. I saw two comments. LaRon, I know you were holding something. What was your comment?
Bear with me, but I think it was something that I wrote a status a little bit, and it said the true test of a man or woman's character is shown by how he or she handles you when you're at odds. And so to agree with what Lauren was saying, let me say it again. True test of a man or woman's character is in how they handle you when you are at odds. That's why it's extremely important not for us to start arguments when we begin to have, or dating or different things, but to see how that character is when you're at odds, because that's going to show whether you're willing to deal with. That's how you weigh it out. Not that I'm trying to start something with you, but I'm trying to see when we get there, how far are you willing to go? Are you a woman or a man that's going to set my clothes on fire? Are you going to key my car? Come on now. See, we can't tell what it is that we're willing to handle if we don't have any issues that we go through. I knew I was going to marry my wife because she didn't flip out. She didn't flip the heck out when we were at odds. It was like, okay, I didn't like that, but that's not going to destroy the relationship. That's not going to cause us to split. You know what I mean? And so that character you're able to see is when you're dating. That's when you're able to weigh it out. And it should be characteristics dealing with integrity. Come on now. I mean, I'm just talking. I mean, someone who with integrity, someone who's not going to bash you when things are bad, someone who's not gonna go on Facebook and do all these things, because that shows no boundaries. You hear what I'm saying? And so it's just that when we are in pursuit of a relationship, let enough time go by to where you can see what you're willing or not willing to deal with. And I want to say this last thing. I don't believe, hear what I'm saying? This is me personal. It's okay. I don't believe that there's actually a time limit that we have to be together in order for us to decide whether that's it. We're going to be together or not. Because here's the thing. I've known people who've been together 10 years. When they got married after 2 years, they were divorced. I know people who got married in a year and 4 years later still married. You hear what I'm saying? So don't allow the time when you're in a relationship, you're getting to know this person mentally, emotionally, not just physically. And a lot of us get caught up with physical beauty and emotions that we overlook. So the bedroom is feeling good to us. Or they just gave me compliment because I was beat up so much about another man or woman. When they give me a little bit, I accept the abuse. See, that's what happens in a lot of relationships. And so the main thing, lastly, what all comes down to, you, the individual, are the ones who decide what I want. It is you who are able to decide that. But the only way to accurately decide is, first of all, you have to have already in place some things I'm willing and not willing to deal with. And you may find out as you get in a relationship, when you have certain things that happen in that relationship, well, okay, that's a little too far. She said she was going to kill me. he raised his hand at me. You know what I'm saying? Oh, whoa, I'm not willing to deal with that. So that's what I would give when it comes to that. Yeah, I'm not going to go no longer because I know we're at time right now, because I was going to give you a story about my wife, but nah.
Listen, we might go a tad bit over. No, go ahead and share the story. We want to hear it.
Well, so watch this. It's this. Before me and my wife got married, we got married about 1.5 years. We weren't together that long. We'd been rather be together 9 years, going on 10 years now. You hear what I'm saying? We was together that long. One thing I did not know this until this year in the beginning, where me and my wife went to therapy. Not because of that we were just fighting like cats and dogs, but because I knew something wasn't right. And what wasn't right was a point of communication in our relationship. What I didn't understand before I got into the relationship, that there are people in the world, hear me, they don't know how to communicate like me. They don't know how to communicate like you. You hear what I'm saying? And so I didn't know that was an issue at the time until we got to a relationship and our therapist said, listen, in a relationship, there's people who don't know how to communicate. And I'm a communicator, so I was frustrated. I said, tell me how you feel. You hear what I'm saying? And I know some people said that communication was a no-go for or that's a sign right there. But once again, in this, that wasn't a top priority to me. I didn't know that was a thing, to be honest with you. But what we did was, when we ran into a roadblock in our relationship where she wasn't good with that, she didn't know how to express herself. I'm frustrated, like, why don't you just tell me? I know how to listen. I can talk to you. That wasn't a deal breaker for me. You hear what I'm saying? And sometimes when you do get in situations to where you recognize that you're in a marriage and there's certain things you're annoyed with that you didn't know about, sometimes the best thing to do is get a therapist. Someone who's professional and know what they're actually doing so that the communication lines can be there. Because the main reason why we have issues in relationships is because we have communication issues and we don't know how to do it. Me and my wife never went through counseling, which I wish we would have done it, but we never went through that. So we weren't able to pull out what is in you that we're going to be having to deal with for the future and what is in me. So right there, man, I mean, like, you gotta, when you get into it and they cross some of the other things and that you sat there and said, I won't deal with, then you got to get help if there's other things you can't get past.
Definitely. Good points. Man, we're at our time. We got like a minute left. And so really quick, if you enjoyed the conversation, give us one last like, a heart, let us know that you were feeling the conversation. Also share it so other people can hear this, because this is a 4-part series. We're only on part 2. We have 2 more shows, Monday nights at 8 p.m. In between now and then, we want you to go to elevatingmen.com. You can also go to our YouTube channel. So just go to Google, type in Elevating Men, or go to YouTube, punch in Elevating Men. Catch up on our archives so that you can hear more of our shows, more of our perspective. We have some really, really great conversations, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Before we go, if everybody could just give their last closing thoughts, how people can reach you, I definitely appreciate it. Start with you, Andrew.
So Dinner and Dialogue on Facebook, but last thought was LaRon's comment. We were talking about love and something like that. When he was talking about the communication thing, love is a tool, and that's where love can be used, such as love is patient, love is kind, love is not this, love is not boastful, love is so forth and so on. It teaches you how to handle, like you use those words, that other communicator.
That's good. That's good, bro. I love it. Yes, sir.
Love it, love it. Devin Elise, Miss Lifted KC.
Hey, so you guys can follow me on Facebook, Devin Elise, or go to Lifted KC. I put it in the comments, so please support, like, follow us for any and every mental health aspect. My final thought is just kind of piggybacking off LaRon. I am 100% advocate for counseling therapy. Most marriages, the pastor requires you do 3 sessions. I say do 3 months. Ask the tough questions. Ask about finances, mental health. Ask them, have they been molested when they was a child? Like the things that people deal with in childhood tends to surface in adulthood, and it will show up in your marriage whether you like it or not. So if you combat that early, you'll almost know who you're dealing with. So I encourage therapy 1,000%.
Awesome, awesome. LBZ.
Well, you can find me on Facebook, LaRon Barnes on Facebook. You can actually look up LaRon the Motivator on Facebook as well. And then also on Instagram, you can find me. And I'm here for anyone, listen to me, anyone who wants to go somewhere in life and they feel stuck. I coach. And so if you feel stuck, you need mentorship, you need direction, you need it. I've been gifted by the higher power to be able to help you through those issues. So therefore, just reach out to me and we can definitely get some work going.
Perfect. Vice President of Elevated Men, Lojo Speaks.
Everywhere on social media, you can find me at Lojo Speaks. To everybody on the panel, to the people that were commenting throughout the show, taking a word out of Andrew's vocabulary. Thank you for having this courageous conversation. So this is truly a courageous conversation to really talk about marriage and how we uncover the different things that maybe we didn't know or didn't realize that have either affected us and impacted us in some way in our relationships, or we head off before it actually happens, right? And so thank you all for having this courageous conversation. Please come again next week and the week after and just keep coming.
Miss Latoya.
Yes, Latoya Rosoff, 79 Rose Dress Shop, the premier dress shop for curvy women, all about body positivity and self-esteem. My closing thoughts are just relationships. Everything needs to be have maintenance. Like you maintain your car, you get oil checks and tune-ups and things like that. Same thing with your relationship, with your marriage. It's the very same thing to keep it going.
Love it, love it. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for being on the panel tonight. Everyone who's watching, appreciate you. Share it with your people. Watch it between now and next week so you have a little something extra to bring to the conversation. Pull in your friends, pull in your neighbors, pull everybody in, as we're having some great conversations, and we definitely want your input. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next Monday, same time, same place, 8 p.m. Looking forward to it. Y'all have a great night.